This is Success Stories, a program at the Sorrell College of Business at Troy University. I'm your host, Alan Mendenhall, Associate Dean of the Sorrell College of Business and Executive Director of the Manuel H. Johnson Center for Political Economy. Success Stories is a program that highlights the lives and careers of people who have accomplished great things. And my guest today is State Auditor Andrew Sorrell, who has accomplished many great things in a very short career. Thanks for joining me.
Well, I appreciate that. It's an honor to be on here with you.
Well, everybody probably wants to ask you about your political career, but I want to start by asking you about your background in entrepreneurship because you began working in business at a very young age. I want to know in particular about the textbooks, the textbook business that you started when you were just a teenager.
Well, the genesis of the textbook business was my brother was awarded a full scholarship to attend the University of North Alabama, and the full scholarship included textbooks, and it was $200 a semester. And he incorrectly assumed that that would cover all of his textbooks. So he went in, and of course it only bought like one textbook, and then he goes back at the end of the semester to resell his textbook, and they're offering him just pennies on the dollar, just $10 or $20 for this book he paid so much money for. And he thought, you know, I could do a whole lot better selling that on Amazon. So he did, and then he thought, wait a minute, why don't I buy books from my classmates and sell those on Amazon as well? But he had one problem. He didn't have any money. So he came to his rich younger brother, as I like to joke, who was working at Chick-fil-A at the time. I was making $5.15 an hour. I think I'd just gotten a quarter raise or something. I'd saved up $2,000, all the money I had in the world, and we became 50-50 partners in this textbook business. And that's really kind of how we got started, was just going around on this campus, University of North Alabama in Florence, buying textbooks from people and flipping them on Amazon.
Now, did you encounter any regulatory hurdles along the way? Were there any barriers to entry that you had to deal with as you, a young teenager, upstart, tried to start your business?
So when you get a young person and they're starting a lemonade stand or they're starting a little lawn cutting business, you know, government regulation is the furthest thing from their mind. They just get an idea like, oh, if I made some lemonade, I could sell it on the side of the road and make some money. They're not thinking health department or any of that. And we were much the same way. I was 16 when I partnered up with my brother. We weren't thinking business licenses. We weren't thinking about non-compete agreements on the University of North Alabama campus. And we ended up getting a cease and desist letter from the attorney for the university saying basically stop purchasing and doing and selling textbooks on our campus. We have given that exclusive right to the on-campus bookstore, and we're going to sue you if you don't stop. They also ended up turning us into the city of Muscle Shoals for operating without a business license, and we ended up having to go get a business license. We had to get a variance on our home so we could run a business out of our home. And a lot of regulatory hurdles. We were even initially declined for that, and they came back at a subsequent meeting and took another vote, and my neighbor who happened to serve on the board helped flip a few votes and get us approved so we could sell textbooks out of our own house. So yeah, ever since then in business, I've always been very aware of what the regulations were and try to do things by the book. You know, you hire an accountant, you do QuickBooks, you keep your books correct, and try to make sure all these regulatory T's are crossed and I's are dotted. But at the time as a 16-year-old, all you're thinking about is purchasing a book for 40 bucks and selling it for 80 on Amazon.
Your entrepreneurial background, I think, helped you finish college not in 4 years, but in 2 years. How? How do you finish college in 2 years? How did you accomplish that?
I believe I hold the distinction of being the fastest person to ever graduate the University of North Alabama. And I asked President Kitts that a couple years ago when I was a state legislator. I said, am I the fastest? Because I've been telling everybody I graduated in 2 years. I'm the fastest person to ever get through. Is that accurate? And he said, to my knowledge, it is accurate. I don't know of anybody who's ever graduated college in 2 years. But my dad had graduated college in 3 years. So he's the one who originally gave me the idea. And I told my mom in high school, I think I'm going to try to get through in 2 years. And she said, I don't think that's possible. And I said, I've done the math. Here's what I need to do. I need to sign up for all of the AP classes that my high school offers, take those AP tests. You can get up to 6 credit hours in English and history and some other subjects, test and essentially test out of those various classes. And then also, I started taking college classes while still in high school. You know, I took public speaking, I took chemistry, I took pre-calculus, all at the local community college where my mom was teaching nursing, so it was free for me to go there. So I was never a college freshman. By the time I got accepted into the University of North Alabama on a full scholarship, I was already a sophomore. The first class I ever walked into at UNA was Management 301.
So on the state auditor's website, when you go and look at your bio, it ends with this great line where you say, I am a Christian first and a conservative second. How does your faith inform your day-to-day work and your day-to-day life?
Well, there's people in America who believe that your faith and politics shouldn't intersect, and I don't believe that at all. You don't want the government to establish a religion, but does my religion impact the way that I operate as a businessman? Of course, I hope it does. Does it impact the way that I act as a politician? Again, yes, I hope that it does. And I think Christian values are something that's sometimes lacking in politics. I grew up in a Christian home. My great-grandfather, grandfather, and father were all preachers. So that's just kind of what I grew up with. I knew I was conservative from a young age, began voting at age 18, but was never particularly interested in politics. But I think so many times, you want to vote your conscience. When I was in the legislature, you vote your district, but you have to vote your conscience too. And I was honest with the people in my district when I was running. I said, if you elect me, here's the kind of representative I'm going to be. I am going to vote to defend traditional Christian values. I am going to stand up and say, no, I believe in one man and one woman for marriage. I don't believe that abortion is correct. I'm going to take all these strong social stances because that's who I am as a Christian, and I can't divest myself of that just because I'm getting involved in politics.
What is your proudest accomplishment from your time serving as a state representative?
Well, there were several. There were several good things I got done. The civil asset forfeiture bill I worked on with Senator Orr, being atop all the scorecards for the last 3 years, being ranked #1 most fiscally conservative state legislator 3 years in a row. But all of those things pale in comparison to what I think I was able to accomplish with constitutional carry. Constitutional carry is very simple to explain. You shouldn't have to purchase your right to carry a firearm back from your state government. The Second Amendment's really clear on that when it says the right to keep and bear arms shall not be infringed. So is having to purchase a pistol permit an infringement on your right to bear your arm? Well, obviously, yes. You shouldn't have to pay for that right. So I authored a very simple bill that said you no longer have to have a pistol permit to carry a firearm concealed on your person or in your vehicle, because the Second Amendment gives you that right already. And it took 4 years of work building the co-sponsor list from 7 my first year to about 40 in my 4th year, when Representative Shane Stringer and Senator Gerald Allen were actually able to get that bill over the finish line. Enjoyed working with both of them very, very closely. Wasn't too concerned my name wasn't on the bill when it went through. I was just excited that I had been such a big part of returning a constitutional right back to the citizens of Alabama, which they've not had for many decades.
Well, random fact about you that probably most people don't know is you are a scuba diver. Yeah. What is that about? Where did you learn to scuba dive?
My best friend and his wife, on their honeymoon, they were at some resort in St. Lucia, and the resort said, we offer scuba classes, and they thought, oh, well, we're down here for a week. Why don't we sign up and get scuba trained? And they came back from the honeymoon, and my friend said, you've got to do this, Andrew. He's like, I know your personality. You would love being a scuba diver. I said, okay, sure, I'll go get trained. So I went, I got my scuba diving basic license in 2015. And then immediately subsequent to that, I started working on my advanced, and that's the level I'm still at. Haven't had time to move up in my certifications, but absolutely love scuba diving. I've scuba dove all over the world, very unique locations. I was able to dive in Iceland, actually, which, yes, it was quite cold. It was 37-degree water. I was in a dry suit, but of course that doesn't protect your hands and your face. You're still, those are freezing cold. And even in a dry suit, you're still cold, very, very cold by the time you get out. They had hot chocolate for us. And we were able to dive in a fissure between the continents. The continental divide is in Iceland, in Silfra. And you have the North American continent on the left and the European continent on the right. And they are pulling apart a few centimeters a year. And there's a fissure that's formed, and the glacier water flows between the fissure. And that's what we were diving in. And there's one spot in particular. You can reach out with your left hand and touch North America, and reach out with your right hand and touch Europe at the same time. And in another 10 or 15 years, you won't be able to do it because the continents keep drifting further apart.
So what do you get with each added level of certification? Do you get more access to different waters, or is it just what?
Correct.
What is that?
So there are certifications like your nitrox certification where, when you're underwater, you have nitrogen building up in your blood, and that's what will give you the bends if you come up too quickly. So if you breathe nitrox, then you're breathing an enriched air formula. You have less nitrogen building up. You're able to stay underwater at a deeper level for longer. That's very important if you're doing, let's say, a wreck dive that's 100 feet deep and you need to be, your bottom time to be 45 minutes. You probably couldn't accomplish that on a tank of air, but on a tank of nitrox you could. Also, the advanced certification allows you to dive deeper. So there are some spots, like for instance, this last fall I was privileged to be able to go to Belize and dive the Blue Hole, which is over 400 feet deep. And of course, you can't go that deep in it. There's actually a layer of hydrogen sulfide, I think, down about 300 feet that'll kill you if you go through. So you don't go that deep. But I did go down 151 feet under the surface of the ocean into this blue abyss. It was fascinating because there's all these stalactites and stalagmites underwater, which of course don't form underwater, which tells you that at one point in time was above the surface of the ocean, and now it's all submerged 150 feet, and we're able to go down and see that. So yes, you get additional dives you can do basically as your certification levels improve.
So you've traveled around the world to scuba dive, but you also discovered your wife while you were traveling abroad. She was obviously not your wife at the time, but you met on a bus ride in Rome, Italy, correct?
Yeah, so one of my hobbies, which is travel, I think I've been to 33 countries now, just absolutely love to travel. And on one of these trips, it was actually the trip, I was in Iceland scuba diving, then I went to Rome, got on a bus, and I saw a pretty girl. And so I took the seat in front of her, and the first question she asked me was, "Do you like politics?" And I was just instantly sold. I was like, this is the one for me, because I was planning to run for the state legislature the next year. And we got talking on that trip, and I was able to get her phone number, and she was from Greenville, South Carolina. And when we got home from the trip, I went and visited her family. That went well. And then, true story, she called me up when we'd only known each other for 34 days. She said, "I don't want to pressure you, but my church only has one weekend left next summer that's not reserved for a wedding. Is it okay if I go ahead and pencil us in?" So what do you say to that?
I love it. So she essentially proposed to you. Did you have a ring at that point when she did that?
No, we didn't, but I was already working on a ring. I mean, we already knew. The truth is, after I spent just a few weeks with her, I knew she was the one. We were still on the bus ride through Europe. We were doing like a church history tour through Europe. And I asked her, I said, "If we end up getting married, would you be okay moving over to Alabama?" And she said yes. So we were already having those conversations. So honestly, by the time she asked me that question, it was almost like a foregone conclusion we were going to get married, though I didn't officially propose until I got the ring, and that was in end of October.
And now you have 2 daughters together, and you are state auditor, and that is very exciting. Constitutional officer in the state of Alabama. What does the state auditor do?
You know, I absolutely love being state auditor. State representative was a lot of fun. Served in that position for 4 years. I was elected at age 32. And at 36, I became Alabama's youngest statewide official. There was a judge, I think she was on the Criminal Court of Appeals or something, that was 38. She joked with me when I got elected. She's like, "You stole my title as the youngest statewide officer." But the truth is that young people are starting to do very well in statewide office. We see that with Secretary of State Wes Allen's only 46. Senator Katie Britt is 40 years old. Will Ainsworth is 41, but he was elected to lieutenant governor at age 37, and then I was elected state auditor at 36. So a lot of young people are having success now in statewide office. But what interested me in the state auditor position was the duties of the auditor, because I think they're overlooked, and there's some duties that the auditor does that people wouldn't necessarily associate with an auditor's office. One of those things is I appoint Board of Registrars members. In fact, all those appointments are due September 30th, so they're going to be coming out very soon. Many of them are already in the mail as we speak. 1 per county in every county except Jefferson. So there's 3 registrars per county. They're appointed by the governor, the agricultural commissioner, and the state auditor. So who knew? The state auditor actually has a lot to do with election integrity in Alabama. And we had some election integrity issues in the 2022 elections. We had them in Etowah County, we had them in Lauderdale County, we had some slip-ups where people were put in the wrong districts, and it ended up impacting the outcome of some of the elections. And to me, my position is that's unacceptable. You know, it is so difficult running. The last thing you need as a candidate is to lose an election because voters were put in the wrong districts. And all of that can be accomplished with computer software we have and with training for these registrars. And I want to highlight too, we talk about the bad cases, but there were 65 counties who did it right. They did a great job and they deserve to be commended, because it's not an easy job. You're after redistricting in 2021, you are moving 5 million people into different districts. And the districts overlap and intersect, and it can get confusing. But it's important that it's done right. And I've made some changes in the registrar's positions in Alabama, and that's something I promised on the campaign trail, was that I was going to appoint people who were really serious about election integrity. Another duty of the auditor is I serve on what's called the Board of Adjustment. So you cannot sue the state of Alabama, it's a sovereign entity, but if you do have a valid claim against the state, the Board of Adjustment is the only way that you can collect on that claim. So for instance, if a Department of Labor employee backs into your truck or something like that, you could put a claim in with us, and most of the claims are what we call consent claims. The agency says, yes, we owe that money, and they consent to paying it, and we almost just, pass those en masse. The ones where the agency says, no, we don't believe we owe this money, those are the ones that we actually have a hearing on that come before the Board of Adjustment. We get to ask questions to the person who put the claim in and to the attorney representing that agency or board. It's been totally fascinating. We approve about $10 million in claims every quarter. We have 30 million in claims, so there's a lot of them that we end up denying. And then the main duty of the state auditor is tracking the state's property. Everything that costs $500 or more, the personal property items that are non-consumable, they all go on the inventory rolls, and we make sure that they're not being lost or stolen. And indeed, we do lose probably 1% of our state property every year to loss or theft, and it's sad, but it's something that it's important to me because it's taxpayer money. It takes taxpayer money to replace those items when they're lost, and I think we need to do a good job for the citizens of Alabama making sure that we are keeping track of everything that they own.
And when you discover lost property, I assume, do you report it to what, the Attorney General's office?
Correct.
Or yeah, that's fascinating.
So we send the agency a letter saying we audited you, you were missing this amount of property, and the Attorney General's also copied on that. And then if there's a criminal component, if it was stolen or something, that ends up getting prosecuted.
Yeah.
Some of the losses are, we know exactly what happened and it's very explainable. So maybe a state docks worker has a cell phone, he bends over and it falls into the ocean or something like that. Like those things happen, mistakes happen, and there's forms you fill out, you know, to record the disposition of that property that was damaged or whatever. What we're looking for is property that's disappeared and nobody has any idea where it went. Those are the cases that we need to figure out. Or maybe it was stolen due to negligence. You know, did you pull up in the Walmart parking lot and leave your state laptop in the front seat with the windows rolled down? That's a negligent loss. That's something that the state needs to collect on.
Well, you mentioned the campaign trail a few minutes ago, and you had a commercial during the campaign. In fact, you had two commercials involving your daughter. And these were really brilliant commercials that sort of pushed you over the edge at the very tail end of the campaign. How did you come up with this idea? First, explain what the commercial consisted of for those who haven't seen it, and then tell us a little bit about, you know, where the idea for those commercials came from.
The commercial was almost born out of desperation, but you know, we were running some polling, and I wasn't doing that well. I was still in last place, and the election was coming up fairly quickly, and I said, we've got to get a commercial that's more memorable, because I was competing with the gubernatorial candidates, the U.S. Senate candidates, and you know, all of these other campaigns with much more of a budget than the state auditor candidates had to work with. And I'm trying to get TV time and get my name out there so people know who I am and can make an intelligent decision on who they vote for. And I didn't feel like our commercials, the standard, you know, the faith, family, and freedom type commercial you see all the politicians run, it just wasn't cutting through the clutter. So I was in my backyard and I was actually praying for guidance. I said, Lord, I'm going to lose this race unless you work a miracle here. And it was the next day I had the idea, nobody really understands the state auditor. Maybe I could explain the state auditor's job to my baby. Liberty was 6 months old at the time, and yes, we named our daughters Liberty and Glory. I
love it.
My wife and I say we love liberty and freedom so much we literally named our daughter Liberty. But Liberty was a really cute baby, very interactive, and I thought, I'm going to explain the state auditor duties to my baby and then put it on TV. I think it'll be funny. So we put Liberty in a little chef hat, and I'm out there cooking on the grill, and she's in her high chair, and she's chewing on a spoon, and I'm droning on about board of registrar's appointments. And the next scene, I'm reading her a night-night story, and I'm talking about how the state auditor caught the county engineer embezzling funds, and she's got her little nightcap on. And finally, by the end of the commercial, I'm still yakking about state auditor, and she's just like passed out asleep on the stroller, you know? and it turned out really, really cute. And my wife did a fantastic job acting throughout the commercials. So I wrote the script myself. We put it up just 5 days before the primary, and that catapulted us into first place, and we ended up making the runoff. For the runoff, my wife actually wrote the script for the second commercial. So it's funny, you see these commercials and you probably think, oh, you know, they paid some campaign consultant to write those. No, we filmed it in our living room and in our backyard, and we wrote the script ourselves. You know, and I think it came across as more genuine that way.
And did they have the camera crew? Did they come into your house and shoot them at the house, or how did that? And that's where you did it?
They sure did. And I got a phone call from a United States Senate candidate, and this individual told me, you know, Andrew, you have the best commercial. How much did you pay for that commercial? I said I paid $2,500 to get that filmed, and this individual said, you know, I'm paying $25,000 for my commercials, and these are better. Like, where did you come up with this idea? And so it turned out really, really well. Very, very cute. I've already got ideas for what we can do 4 years from now.
Oh, exciting. I'm looking forward to that. And how old are your daughters now?
Liberty will be 2 October the 18th, so she's getting close. We're planning her second birthday party. Glory, who Liberty loves being a big sister. She's always wanting to hold Glory. Glory was born June 1st.
Wow,
so she's just a little over 3 months old. Thank you. So yeah, I'm going through. Gloria's sleeping through the night now, so we're back to getting a full night of sleep.
So
and
that means
everything.
you're sleeping through the night now.
Yeah, and especially my wife is sleeping through the night because you know, as busy as I am, my wife ends up getting up a lot more with the kids than I do. But yeah, there were a few late nights. Now what I would do is I'd try to let my wife go to bed at 8 or 9, get a head start on sleep, and I would stay up till 11 or midnight. And if the baby needed something, I could go take care of it, And then Hannah would kind of get the next shift, so to speak.
But at age 2, she really has no sense of, oh, Daddy is the state auditor.
Isn't that what's wonderful about kids and pets? Liberty walks into the Capitol to come have lunch with me like she owns the place. She wants to hit the buttons on the elevator. She wants to, point out any animals and pictures she sees. She has no concept that the governor's right down the hall or the Secretary of State just said hello to her. She doesn't know. And it's kind of like the president's dog. The president's dog or cat is like the cat thinks that you exist to serve them, even if you're the president of the United States. But that's kind of what makes them so lovable.
Yeah, there's not much difference between the president's cat and anybody's cat.
That's
really,
correct,
they all have that sense of entitlement, those cats. Well, your father was a pastor, right? Am I
Yes.
recalling that correctly? And
That's right.
what type of influence did he have on you as a man, as an entrepreneur, and as a believer?
Well, first of all, I was saved at a young age in church. It was a church that my dad helped start in Watertown, Wisconsin, and actually helped start it with a local politician, the town mayor. My dad and some other professors at the university got together and they started this church, and the church is still in existence today.
And where was this?
Watertown, Wisconsin. So this is at Maranatha Baptist Bible College in Watertown, Wisconsin. So it was in that church that I remember hearing the gospel and realizing I was a sinner and needed Jesus at age 4. And it was April 1st, 1990 that I trusted Christ as my Savior, and my dad was able to lead me to the Lord. So certainly my parents played a huge role in my faith. But watching my dad throughout the years, for him, he really has a heavenly mindset. He wasn't concerned about, the riches he could accrue on earth. It was how many souls can I take with me to heaven? That was his concern. And that led us all over the country. That led us to Northern California, where he pastored a church where I was actually born. 6 weeks later, we moved to Wisconsin, where he took a job teaching Greek or Hebrew, I forget which, at the Bible college there. And then it led us eventually to Muscle Shoals, Alabama, when I was in kindergarten, where my dad took a church and where we've lived, ever since then. So my dad's faith and my dad's profession played a huge role in my life. But although my dad was never focused on money, he was focused on ministry, he was resourceful. And he would do things like in college, he bought a few mobile homes and he rented them out to other college students and paid them off and was able to use that money as a down payment for his first house. So that got me interested in real estate, and I own 11 rentals today. I manage real estate today, and I love it. My dad got me started investing in stocks. When I was in 6th grade, he said, I want to teach you about the stock market. I think this is important. You need to get started at a young age saving for retirement. And my dad has done very well. He's a very disciplined saver. He also happened to buy Walmart stock in the late 1980s and hold it a long time, and that did a lot for his for his portfolio, as you can imagine. It'd be like buying Amazon in the 90s or something.
Yeah.
So my dad got me interested in stocks, and I remember in 6th grade, between classes, I would run into the library and I would check the stock quotes for Compaq. That was what CPQ was what I owned. And this is back when the stock market was still trading in fractions. And my 6th grade classmates are like, what are you doing? And I was like, oh, I own this stock. I put 20 bucks in, I own this stock, and I own like 3 shares of Compaq. And I was so excited. And my dad got me thinking a little outside the box. There are ways to make money in life without being an employee. And neither way is wrong. It's just what's right for you. And for me, I felt like the path was owning my own business and just being a little, and that's allowed me to do things like run for political office that I probably couldn't have done. How do you tell your boss, hey, I'm going to go campaign for a year to be state auditor? As a business owner, you can do that. Now, your business might not be doing as well when you get back, which has been the case in both of the campaigns I've run, but it allows you the freedom to make that choice. And that's what being a business owner has always been about to me.
And your father swore you in when you took office.
Yeah, so I got that idea from Commissioner of Agriculture, Rick Pate. So I remembered in 2019 at the inauguration, I was a newly elected state rep. I'm sitting in the audience and I'm watching everyone get sworn in from, the governor on down. And Rick Pate was sworn in by a family member. So I called him when I won my auditor runoff. I called him and I said, Rick, how did you get a family member to swear you in? I thought you had to have like a Supreme Court justice or a probate judge or somebody in the judicial branch swear you in. He said, you do for some of the offices, but some of the constitutional offices, all you need is an officer of the state. And I said, well, what's that? And he said, well, it could be something as simple as a notary. Well, when I heard that, I immediately had the idea, I'm going to ask my dad to swear me in. So I called my dad up after I verified the information. I said, Dad, I want to ask you to swear me in. And he was like totally taken aback, but very honored. And he said, well, I'd love to, but how would I do that? And I said, all you have to do is become a notary. So he did. He paid the money. He went through the class. He got to be a notary in Colbert County, and he was able to administer the oath of office. And my wife got to hold my great-grandparents' Bibles when I was sworn in. So a very special moment.
That is a special moment. To the 16, 17-year-old teenager, what piece of advice do you have about the future, about college, about business, about career, about major life decisions?
If you're gonna do business, go ahead and do it the right way. It's one of the lessons I had to learn the hard way, and you don't have to. You can start off by getting all of your business licenses. You know, I tell people now, when you want to start a business, the first thing you should do is not name the business, is not decide what product you're going to sell. The first thing you need to do is find a good accountant. And so get some of those bases covered, and then go out and start your business, and just be, I would say, legitimate from the start. And yes, you'll learn the hard way about government red tape and regulations and how that sometimes they're overbearing and they hold business back. But I've always found it's better to operate the right way, cross your T's and dot your I's. And then don't be discouraged. You know, we talk about, you know, it's just a show like Success Stories. We talked about some of my successes in politics and in business. What we're not talking about is the times I failed. That wouldn't make for as entertaining of a show. But I probably learned more from the failures than I did from the successes. So I had my share of those too, things I tried to do to make money that didn't work out. So don't be discouraged by those. It's part of the learning experience. People will pay $100,000 to go to college to learn something, but they're afraid to take $10,000 and try to start a business. And I would argue that starting a business for $10,000 might be a better business education than you get going through business school.
Well, Andrew, I really appreciate what you're doing, and I'm glad that you took the time to be on here. This has been Success Stories, a program of the Sorrell College of Business. I'm Alan Mendenhall, signing off.